Hello, and welcome back to another pen talk. Thank you very much for joining me as I explore the amazing, incredible, diverse, wide world of pens. And one is rotating in front of you, being held up by a shrimp. It's a small pocket pen, so I think the shrimp is the appropriate pen holder to use on this rotating table. And yes, it has an interesting color. Yes, it has gold colored accents. And it's a classic design which the Leica Alpha first started up many years ago. So let's look at this pen. It was bought on Temu for a few dollars. Here's that listing. Some interesting descriptions. They do call it copper, and it does have a copper color to it, which is kind of more on the red side than on the yellow side, which is more of a brass. But do we think it's made out of some kind of metal? Yes, it is. Do we know what kind of metal that is? No, but it doesn't matter. It's how it feels, how it looks, how it holds up. Those are the important attributes, not necessarily the atomic number of the metal used in the pen. So with that, the shrimp is going to give you a winky wink, and we're going to dive in. So we talk about first impressions, and when you pick up this pen, the first impression is it's heavy, but that weight seems to be concentrated in the cap. We'll show you what those weights are. You know, it has a lacquered finish, which you can feel in your hands. Little conical finial there at the top of the cap, corresponding gold-colored clip. Very stiff but functional and removable. Nothing at the other end of the pen. And as we would anticipate, it unscrews in about 2 turns, a little bit less than 2 turns. And we'll see what we learned to understand is a nice number 5 nib. At least we'll find out when we start to write with it. The section appears to be a slightly different color than the rest of the pen. Yeah, it's in that family. And as we would expect from this design, it does post very deep, very secure, and even though that cap is fairly heavy, it feels good in the hand because the center of weight of the pen is still south of the crooks of your hand, and therefore it works well. That section's on the small side, but it's a pocket pen, it's a small pen, it's a number 5 nib, and that's what we would expect. As a cartridge converter, you just unscrew this section and we find a converter in there, which is fine. I prefer converters. And there's that spring, which I don't like because it just collects ink and makes it very difficult to clean out when you want to change inks. It's nice how that darkened lacquer here, different color than the rest of the pen, but it's an inexpensive pen. For an inexpensive metal pen, there's going to be some little things that may not have been what you would have done if you were making the pen. Yes, I have a few pocket pens. This is just a few of them. So this is the pen of the video. Here is a old one that I took off all the varnish, so that's a metal brass finish. You can obviously see the color differences and why they call this copper. Here's one that's been lacquered. I didn't do anything to it. Here's a silver version. Here's a nice anodized blue aluminum one. Here's one made of cellulose acetate. And of course, how could we not forget the Hongdian M2, which is also a very good design. But this has a nice spring-loaded clip. As you can see, these all have those classic clips that can come off. I think they did a good job with the gold trim here. And these other ones are all that silvery trim, even though the pen is not silvery. But they're all good pens. I enjoy them, and I'm glad I have them. So I've done some disassembly just for my own edification. It doesn't look like there's a screw-in nib unit, so the nib and feed just pulled out very easily when I was playing with them. And yes, that converter has a spring in it, and this is just a snap-on collar here, which I haven't been able to snap off. Barrel, cap. Let's darken and look inside the cap. Yes, I've darkened as much as I can on this winter's day. So the cap has that engraving on it. You can see them scratches, so it's not exactly the most shiny surface. Slips out of my hand. And of course, it's engraved and it's raised. You can feel it. If you look inside, we'll find something interesting. There's a nice little plastic liner there at the bottom of the cap, so when you post a pen, hopefully you don't get any scratches or damage from that. If you look inside, not as much of a liner as I expected. There's a little piece there, to me, which is probably indicative of that finial there that's at the top. Yeah, nice clip, functional clip. Looks familiar. And it comes off if you need to take it off. While playing with the pen on my desk, I was amazed at how this conical finial on the top of the cap just really catches and reflects the light. Very interesting, very nice. So after I've been using the Lanbitou for a few days, because I really enjoy writing with the nib, I've begun to appreciate the little details that they've done with the pen. And if you compare it to this pen here, you'll see how it's nice with the contrast of the gold-plated trim, and also how that little bevel at the bottom of the cap comes out. So what is this one? Since 1935, whatever that means. The other thing about this design is you got some scratches here from the cap. If we look at the nib, we don't see anything identifying the actual maker of the pen, but it is a shiny brass. And here's a dull finish. I don't know what that is. Should clean it off. But then this has the War and Peace, which has been a controversial engraving. But this one looks like it survives a little bit better. There's a few scratches there. And of course that, lacquer coating builds up in the threads and it creates that different look. But I think this is a good design for pocket pen. It accommodates a converter, and the nibs have been fairly good in my experiences. As you probably guessed by now, this is the only ink to put into the pen. Diamine Ancient Copper, and the name is just on the top of the cap. Here's the bottle that it comes in, which also has that Ancient Copper label on it. And of course I write on the top because when it's sitting in my drawer of ink, I need to be able to tell what ink it is. And if we look at the paper towel, yeah, there's some other ink here, but it is certainly on the red side, which is what we see in the copper pen, so it's a red theme. Let's see how it writes. As you probably didn't hear, it is a very, very smooth, I would call it an extra fine nib. I'm impressed with how it feels on paper, which is really a good testament of a good nib. And it's also pretty wet, so that's really good, and this ink does work well in this pen. Diamine inks have good flow, at least in my experience with them, and I enjoy writing with the pen. It'll join my pocket pen's inked up jar that I have on my desk. So I reached the conclusion of this video. Hope you enjoyed it. I certainly did. And I'm just amazed at this pen. I didn't expect the nib to be as good as it is. It's, a Lanbitou. Say no more. So I checked around to see where else it's sold, so I could share that with you, maybe give you a link. This design is available from a lot of different places in a lot of different formats. So if it's a pocket pen you're interested in, I think these are a great value, good to have. So with that, I hope this video finds everyone safe, healthy, and happy, enjoying your pens, inks, papers, maybe sitting down and writing a letter that you owe somebody. Always good to do. I do. So we've reached the end of this video. Thank you all for watching, and we will say bye until the next one.